All right, and we're live. So, welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette, and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today, on the line, all the way from the New York City area, I have Josh Brenner. And Josh, you are the CEO at Hired, and I'll just say hired.com just because it feels like it sort of belongs together at hired.com. It is an AI driven hiring marketplace. But the tagline that I really liked on the website was, people can create a profile and let companies apply to interview you. So it's a
Exactly.
mechanism there that we're going to be talking about. So okay, we're going to dive into all of that, but let's get to the first question, which is, what does your virtual office look like? What do you need to get your work done?
Uh, First of all, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here. I'm excited to talk about this topic because it's something that's been transformative for our company, I would say, and a lot of the clients we work with over the past several years over the past 2 years since COVID started, is this move to remote, and how that impacts how we actually run a company and how we get work done and how we make sure that the whole team knows what they need to do to get our company to the next level and to be successful. So we've been spending a lot of time investing in testing out new tools, iterating, getting smarter about how we actually run our company. Some of the tools that I use to make myself more productive and our team more productive. Slack is sort of our core communication platform, in terms of our real-time communication. Slack and email would be the two key ones. We also obviously use Zoom for all of our meetings. We found that having in particular with meetings, we've tried even more recently to slim down the number of meetings that we had, because we found, like a lot of other companies in the beginning of the pandemic, with a move to fully remote from a company like ours, was, even though we have been very distributed, we were a very in the office culture. And so to make that move to fully remote, we started finding that we were just having way too many meetings, and having way too many people in the meeting. So over time, we've tried to be really kind of set these rules around, what requires a meeting, what doesn't require a meeting, what can be done asynchronously. There's a lot of tools that are coming out to support asynchronous collaboration and communication, like Loom, Mural. We've been using a lot of those tools to improve our productivity primarily, and collaboration in this fully remote world. So just an example, we actually merged two companies together, Hired and Vettery, which were the two leading AI-driven marketplaces. But over the past year, we brought them together to take on a fight with a bigger guy, let's say. And as we were starting to figure out what does it mean to actually bring together two companies in a remote world, it meant, how do we rethink, how do we think about our combined mission, vision, values, kind of what you talked about, our vision of kind of making all hiring transparent, equitable, and efficient. The way that we actually came up with that was in using Mural, and bringing the whole company together to do these brainstorms to figure out, how do we, who are we as a new combined company. So it's exciting, but it's challenging for a lot of companies. A lot of our clients are having all sorts of similar challenges as well. And so a lot of times we're trying to test out these tools, not only for our own productivity but also how do we become a partner and a thought leader for our clients that are going through similar type of iterations and challenges.
Mhm. And you were saying before that before the pandemic, you were sort of an in-office culture
Yeah.
kind of company, but you are also a global company. You have people all over the world working. So there's just various offices all over the world.
Yeah. Previously, like I said, there were two different companies that we brought together. But between the two companies, we had offices in New York, San Francisco, London, and then a small office in Toronto. we actually still have office presence. One of the things that was important to us, and I think is something that as companies are navigating this change, is actually asking the team what they want and how they want to work. And we found we did a survey as we were trying to figure out, when earlier in May or June, when we got the vaccine, we thought things were starting to come back. We sent the survey out to our team and said, how do you want to work going forward? How do you think, what is going to be the most productive for you? Because everyone's had a different experience
Right.
in this move to remote. There's been some people that have thrived and loved the reduced commute, the ability to have more flexibility. Then there's other people that have just missed that connection in person, and the social aspects of it and things like that. And so we really said the team at Hired powers everything we do and is going to make or break our success. And so it can't be me and my leadership team kind of just casting down and say this is how it's going to be. We knew that we needed to kind of flip it around and say, how does everyone on the team actually want to work? And what we found is that people wanted this what we call remote first environment. So we basically still have office space in New York, San Francisco, and London, but it really is completely optional for people to go in when they want to. We also have collaboration tools in place now so that people can see when other people are going to be going into the office, and they can reserve a desk space if they want to be there, because we were able to reduce our footprint in terms of the size space that we had in each of these cities, with the idea that people are going to be using it in a different way. So we took a more, focused on more meeting rooms and collaboration spaces, and changed it from sort of an in-person requirement at all. And it changes the way we think about the business, because any meeting now you have to be very cognizant of, if some people are in person, some people are remote. You need to make sure you're accounting for that, so that the remote, the people that are remote, which I think is, a word that can be debated. Is it really remote? Are they really remote anymore? Or are they just more digital, have a digital presence? But remote first is the term that is stuck in a lot of people's minds. So how do you design the collaboration so that those people are really the people that are not in a physical office together, are actually on equal footing ground with everyone else in terms of their ability to contribute and be part of the decisions that are made and things like that.
Right, because in person, it's natural. It's so much more powerful than bringing in the remote person. That you really have to be deliberate about your practices for that. Okay, so I have so many questions, but I got to be mindful of the time because we won't get through them all at once. When you guys transitioned to this remote first, what was one of the bigger challenges that you ran into just as a team yourself? Was it kind of a smooth thing, like people just had to get used to it, or were there some major hurdles that you ran into in going to this model? I mean, we're not out of the pandemic, right? We're recording in October of 21, so you're probably still experimenting. But
we're learning every day, I would say. I don't think any company has had it perfect, and if they did, then they're probably not trying hard enough to improve themselves. I would say that in the very beginning, we kind of just had to move quickly and make it work. And I think I would say we were replicating the in-office environment in a digital remote way. Now we've really made this shift where we're being cognizant of how much communication we have from the leadership team to the whole company about kind of progress, how much we have in terms of employee recognition and engagement in this virtual environment, because we know that that's really important, is making sure people feel like they're part of something bigger, right? Which is how companies are successful, through teams feeling like they are part of something bigger than just themselves. And so how do we, types of practices that we put in place to, especially as we were going through this journey of integrating our two companies and making sure that we have these new values now. How are people living these values, and who are exemplary examples of people that are living the values? We created this new one team, one dream awards, which are nominated by everyone across the company, so that it's the highest prestige award within Hired that someone can get, and it just is a way for us to digitally acknowledge people who are living our values, and also just the accountability, right, is so important. So we actually moved to Asana, which is another tool that we use now to track projects cross-functionally. That was probably one of the biggest challenges, I would say, that we had, was this cross-functional alignment. Used to be where you would have the ability to have these type of meetings, but in person, and drive good cross-functional alignment for projects. But we have to be really particular and specific about how do we want that done, or how should that be done in a digital world. So that's been one of the challenges, but it's been an exciting journey, because it's made us a lot more efficient, and a lot more productive, and a lot more accountable to actually hitting our goals.
It makes the work more visible, and the results become more important, rather than like how much time you spent at the office.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's actually a lot of the work that we do in hiring is actually in a similar vein, which is we're trying to change hiring managers kind of mindset from this resume based judging to a skill based judging, and I think that is something that it sort of is a similar type of transition to what you just mentioned, and is now made even more possible and exacerbated by the opportunities that remote hiring has opened up for companies.
Okay, we are going to totally dive into that next. But before we do that, because I don't want to move on without asking you this question, you mentioned that you took some things that were that you had to take the way that you were working in person and transition that online, and that in doing so that you went more asynchronous because you found that there was just too many meetings. So we're hearing a lot about the asynchronous community and all kind, like async is the answer, but I want to make this like, it's still too abstract for me. I'm trying to find what are like the tangible things that you took that you were doing before, like not all of them, of course, but like one or two tangible things that you were doing before that you made asynchronous that changed the way that you were working. I'd love to give that example to people.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I get some things that are just general across the whole company, some things that are even more particular to me as a CEO. I have kind of examples for both, but for the whole company, things like roadmap reviews that may have been an hour and a half time for the whole company. What we've done is actually created it into smaller chunks, so that people could have a short summary. It's the same work on the person who's actually delivering this, but they have a 15-minute summary of this is what the Q4 roadmap is going to look like, and then if you're really interested, you could do 15-minute deep dives into the different areas. Some people, it really is important to them on the team. Some people, they are good with just that high level overview, and so that's just one example. What it does is it allows people to, if they had a sales call, if they had another conversation that they needed to do or something with their family during that time, they can actually watch this video when they have the time, when it fits within their schedule, and they can collaborate. We opened up different ways for them to collaborate, ask questions. Normally that would be done in the session. They could do it either through Slack or through other channels for giving feedback on these type of things. But then even as a CEO, this async, it sort of changes the game, I would say, in terms of how I can stay in touch with customers, and how our customers are feeling about our product. So we use this product called Gong, which is a which is a sales enablement tool that is actually used for sales coaching. So what it does is it records all of our sales calls across the board. And my background is in product management, so I love kind of talking to customers and learning about what we're not doing well and what we could be doing better. So it gives me unfettered access to every single sales call, and I can actually type in if I'm wanting to focus in on remote hiring or diversity and inclusion or a specific topic. I can actually dive into that topic and just hear about what customers are having success or pain points in, and that's been an asynchronous unlock for me, because normally I would love to go on a lot of different sales calls and talk to the customer directly, but this is a much more efficient way for me to get that same value in a much more compressed time frame. So I'm pretty bullish. If you can't notice on this async move, there's obviously there's a balance. You can't move everything to async, and one of the things that we're trying to make sure of is it doesn't actually decrease engagement, because we're seeing benefits in terms of the engagement, but then there's also the possibility where you put all these videos up and people within the company are just so focused on their day-to-day that they don't have the opportunity to actually watch it. So we're growing and learning in that area as well right now.
So it begs the question, though, also, when we start going more async, we're communicating in different ways, like through video, through messaging, through these different channels. How have you guys sort of changed your information architecture of how you store these things? Because all these videos have to be stored somewhere, right? Otherwise, you either watch it in the moment and you lose it. So it's kind of a big question, so you can tackle that any way you want, but that begs the question, like, how do you set that stuff up? Like,
we right now we have we use Google, the Google suite, collaboration suite for Gmail and Google Docs, and so we have everything housed within Google. We have a whole file system in there that is essentially like a mini intranet. That is something that is top of mind for us that we're working on right now. How do we actually improve that user experience to make it feel more like a traditional internet, but more for the async remote world, era. So I'd love to come back to you and share with you what we learn over the next couple of months on that front. But it's a work in progress for us, for sure. That is a challenge that we're seeing internally, as well as how do we make sure that people have the access to all that information. Today we have this file system, but we think there's a big opportunity to do that a lot better.
Yeah, I think it's a shift that all companies are going to now. As we go more remote, we have to go more written. And when we go more written or more video, like, you have to set up a way for people to be able to dip into and take out of information. Like, what system works for that? Like, is it a giant wiki system? Is it a project management? Like, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because every system is so different, but I'm always curious how people have done it. So work in progress, Google Suite, things are keeping organized as possible. And
and we have Asana. We have Asana. We have also like verticalized, I would say, solutions in the different teams. So on the engineering side, they have Confluence, which is a product that is more engineering and product focused. But we have a goal to become sort of a leading remote first company, and so this has been one of the things that I'm really excited about furthering, is this information sort of hub, if you will, that is really spans across the company, but we have not cracked the nut yet.
Yeah, works in progress. Okay, I have tons of questions, but we cannot end, we don't have to end soon, but we cannot not talk about hiring and stuff, given that you are hired.com, right? So we got to go to that. So you were saying before that you were trying to challenge people to go from resume-based system to a skill-based system. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, maybe let me take a step back, if you don't mind, and kind of just tell you a little bit about what Hired is, and I think I'll lead into that.
Right.
So Hired is, like you mentioned, an AI-driven hiring marketplace that matches candidates that have the combination of both quality and intent. So we vet all of the candidates before they come onto the platform, and we reject about 60% of all the candidates that come onto the platform, and we match those that make it onto the platform with top companies such as Dropbox, Coinbase, Zillow, Zendesk, Peloton, and then a slew of other amazing companies. And our vision is pretty simple, but powerful, and it gives us a lot of work to do, and it gives us a lot of reason to be excited about coming into work every day. We want to make all hiring equitable, efficient, and transparent. These are the three things that when we look at the world of hiring, we think that there's huge room for improvement. And companies work with us for a couple of reasons. The two biggest ones I would say are response rates from candidates, response rates from high quality candidates that are relevant to what they're looking for, and then also the time to hire. So the reason for that is that that combination of quality and intent doesn't exist anywhere else in the hiring world. So you look at a lot of the other solutions that are out there, they may have one of those, they may bring one of those two pieces of the puzzle to the table, but Hired really focuses on that combination. And that's ever important right now because because of this massive surge in demand for high quality talent. And so it's been a really exciting time and transformative time to be in this hiring space right now, which is amazing.
I bet. And what are like modern staffing challenges that you would say people, in a company? Is it just finding the qualified people? Is that like the biggest challenge that people are having?
I would say, there's a lot of talk out there about this great resignation, and that is for sure happening. We're seeing people during the pandemic have really spent a lot of time thinking about what's important to them, and the job takes up a lot of people's time, and it's a big investment, and you want to be working at a place that you're excited about the vision and the mission, and especially employees, on some of the younger employees that are coming into the market now, or just kind of growing their careers in the market. They don't want to be just kind of clocking in and clocking out. They want to be part of something bigger, and they want to be part of something that they can be proud of, and which makes a lot of sense. And so candidates and individuals in their careers have taken this time to really reflect on what it is that they're looking for, and have been making moves in a way that has never existed historically. So there's people leaving, looking for new opportunities, coming to Hired to get their fill of these, like you said, that one of the big reasons why candidates come to Hired is because companies apply to candidates. So it saves a lot of the time that normally a candidate would be, applying for all these different jobs, and probably, most of the time never hear back from them. Companies reach out to the candidates that are right for the job that they have. So companies can be really particular about, okay, I'm looking for this type of profile. They can be really efficient, and they're mostly guaranteed to get a response from a candidate. So we have a 90+% response rate, 50+% acceptance rate. That is a huge shift from, as compared to anything else really in the market. And the skill, the top skills that are in demand right now are what we're seeing are technology roles and sales roles. So those are the two biggest gaps that companies are having, and also those are the two big focus areas for Hired as well.
Interesting. So when you're saying like this whole great resignation, do you have any insight into why people are resigning? Is it just, is it because they don't like their jobs, or is it because they want to go more remote? I don't know if you have insight into that.
I mean, we have a lot of data, obviously, of what's happening on our marketplace, and uh, we have seen that there is 93% of candidates. This is an all-time high. 93% of candidates have stated that they have a preference for remote in some capacity, whether it be remote only, remote first, or some kind of hybrid. But that is astronomical when you look at this pre-COVID numbers. I don't have the data in front of me, but it was obviously significantly lower than that. And even though we've been in the pandemic for a long time, when looking at January of this year, which was almost a full year in the into the pandemic, if you will, only 35% of all of the placements that we made or were remote only. We're basically going to be remote in the future. They did not have any requirements to come back to an office, which sounds like a lot. And at that time, we were really thinking, wow, that's 35% of these roles are now fully remote. But now that's crept up over 50%. So
Wow.
over 50% in this last month, over 50% of all the roles that we're filling are permanently remote. And that is a massive, massive shift in, over the halfway mark. And we don't really see this trend slowing down.
Wow. So, okay. Oh man. Okay, so let me start with this. Let's get into this topic, I should say, which is what is then equitable hiring? Exactly. What does that mean?
Sure. So, one of the things that we found with this move to remote is that it actually, companies have been over the past decade or more been focusing more and more on building a diverse team. There's been countless studies that have been put out that diversity in an organization, in a team, leads to more success. Also, there were all the social injustice challenges that we faced last summer that just further exacerbated and accelerated companies interest in focusing on this. This has been something that Hired has been pushing or promoting and really taking a strong stance on since our inception. We have we've had, even before last year, a number of tools and features within our platform to promote equitable diverse hiring, like bias reduction features and salary bias notifications that will proactively send a message to a hiring manager if we see that they're sending for the same role different salaries to people with different backgrounds and things like that. So we've taken a stance on this for a long time. One of the things we found is that by opening up to remote, companies are able to tap into a much more diverse candidate pool. We something like 80+% more likely to find a candidate from an underrepresented group when they do open up to remote. It makes sense. Historically, a lot of the amazing top jobs were aggregated in these big urban cities that happen to also be very expensive and take a lot to break into them. So not everyone has the same type of opportunities to move to New York or San Francisco just to try to get a job and break into tech, right? So this has really changed the whole dynamic, and which is this move to remote, which is really exciting. We also actually just launched this year, or just two months ago, a transformative feature on our platform, which is what we call diversity goals. So candidates actually can now specify their demographic information into the platform when they sign up, and companies can actually look at a pool of candidates that are underrepresented. And there are a lot of companies that claim to be solving for this. They use AI and they use sort of assumptions to take a look at a name or a photo and say what underrepresented group those people may or may not be from.
Dangerous game to play.
we're really against that and think that that's a really bad practice for companies to be doing, and very gray and possibly probably more illegal. So what we did was we spent a lot of time making sure that we did this in a way that was fair, appropriate, and really opening up these amazing opportunities with the companies we work with to more and more underrepresented groups. So just in the quick 2 months that we've launched this feature, you look at all of the positions, the roles that are being filled on Hired. Previously, there would be an average of 20% of underrepresented candidates in those pipelines. Now, when people are using this feature, there's those same pipelines have over 50% of underrepresented people in their pipeline. So we're
Awesome.
really proud. We're really proud of the work we're doing, and really for our clients for demanding this and for pushing us towards investing in this further. So this is an exciting thing that remote has really been a big part of.
Yeah, it feels like remote, it really helped level the playing field, and it showed that like the results and the value that someone produces is far more important than their location. So
Exactly.
So yeah, I love that there's been a shift in focus from time-based work to just results-oriented work, because it does indeed level the playing field to way more. And I think companies are, since the pandemic, are much more open to hiring further and further away now that they're seeing what's possible. So
Exactly. Yep. And there's
yeah.
there's benefits. And I think I'm just really excited to see how this continues to evolve, because I think we're still at the very beginning of it. And I think that we had this change in the world, what they called globalization, in the 80s, in terms of importing products from China and from international locations. But I think we're now in this new era of globalization where it's going to change the whole world in terms of how people work with remote. So it's definitely an exciting time to be helping companies build teams.
I mean, one of the things that got me into the remote movement to begin with was the realization that in order to solve big, challenging, complex problems, that you needed to get expertise from people all over the world, because they're not all going to be in San Francisco or Indianapolis or whatever. It's just not where everybody is. And so,
Yep.
yeah, I just got excited about like, oh, if you find the best talent, like, wow, think of the things that we could do. And indeed, that's what we're seeing. Like, people are globally working on climate change together and globally working on cures for cancer. And it's just like, now that the pandemic's hit, it's just like, I think everybody sees the vision very clearly of like what's possible when we can do this.
Yep. So, fully agree with that.
So we're really starting to run out of time, and I still have like enormous amount of questions left. Okay, but let me try to think. So for the last two, okay. Okay, one question is, what happens when it's not the right fit? I mean, any company, as careful as we are with hiring techniques and onboarding, there's always going to be a few people in there that it's just not the right fit. How does that work with Hired? Yeah, and I don't know how that. Yeah, how does that work?
Sorry, you mean within our own organization?
Yeah, within your own ecosystem. I would say within the ecosystem of Hired.
Yeah, so I mean, we help companies hire the teams. I think we try to really focus on the transparency aspect of our business, right? Is all about making sure that people have the information up front. So one of the things that we do differently as well is that we require upfront salary on both sides, so that what's the salary the candidate's looking for, what's the salary the company is willing to pay, and that information gets shared right from the beginning. Obviously, there's discussions that are still able to happen, but that transparency aspect. We also have this thing on the candidate side called wish list. So it's all about what are people looking for in their next role, right? Because we know that's why people are actually looking to make a move. So we use that in our matching. We use that to provide the companies intel on how to best talk to this candidate to get them excited about the opportunity. We find that when people do make a match on hired, they are more likely to stay over a longer period of time because there is just more information up front. What happens later in that journey is really, kind of post our the role that we fill, I would say. I could say that it's always a challenge when someone when it doesn't work out with someone. Just from my own experience and on our own team, I would say just being very communicative about what the expectations are on both sides, from the employee side and from the manager side, and give people a chance to try and rectify those things that are not going well on both sides. And in the end, if there's upfront communication and transparency and what's expected on either side, and it's not working out, then it's really is the best thing for both the company and the employee to move on and to find the place that is the right fit for them from a culture perspective or what they're looking for out of their next job.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to know because everybody puts on their best face. It's like dating, right? You go out on the first couple of days and then it's like, you have to make a decision.
Yeah, we try. Yeah, like one other example that you made me think of is a lot of times specifically in tech interviews, right? There are coding challenges or coding tests that are part of that process. And there's arguments that sometimes those are not necessarily relevant to the actual role. We try to give guide our hiring, the teams that we work with to make that to make those questions really specific to the role. But what we do is we actually ask candidates to take assessments up front when they come on the platform so that they can actually showcase their skills to hiring managers before they ever get introduced. So a hiring manager on our platform can go in there and actually watch a playback video of the person coding before they ever reach out to them. So again, that's another piece of this transparency that makes our product more efficient and avoids that you're not knowing who's going to come to that date, right? This is the person that's coming there, this is the skills they have, and it a lot of times avoids wasted time of people that are just they don't have the skills, right, that you need.
I love it. Also, I think about these coding challenges and like you're sitting there and you're doing this coding challenge and people are watching you like in live real time. You've got this limited, only a certain kind of person performs well under those circumstances. I'd be sweating bullets, like even if you're good, so like doing it on video, it's a good example of moving something asynchronous that people can then watch later. Like exactly. No need. Yeah. So that came to mind. Okay. So two last questions. I would say your advice for people, general advice for hiring remotely. Like you guys are pros at hiring people via these platforms. What would you advise people to look for if you're looking for a candidate, like in terms of remote skills, not in terms of programming skills, like I'm going to assume the skills, but if you want somebody to work remotely for your company, are there certain skills that you would point people to?
I think accountability is one, and it's maybe even a hard thing to look for, but does the person have a track record of being able to be accountable in one way or another? I think is a pretty key thing, and obviously cultural aspects of the company are really important. This is sort of beyond the skills. That to me is the foundational piece, but those two traits I would say are extremely important. And the cultural fit, the accountability piece is something you can look at in terms of the resume and from having conversations with the candidate. the cultural piece obviously depends on each company, has a different culture, but culture fit and culture add, right? Those two things are extremely important for a company to, in terms of the likelihood of that person working out, either whether it's remote or not remote. In terms of, I do have some tips for companies as they start to start looking to hire, to kind of make this move to hiring remote, that I like to tell a lot of our customers. If you're interested in kind of hearing a little bit about that.
For sure. Do you have
So,
time?
like pay transparency is something that is really, really important. That's like I said, that's a key pillar of our product. But we think that especially in this world of, there's a lot, there's a whole conversation we can have about, if someone was working in New York or San Francisco, now they make a move, do you change their salary? But that's a slightly different conversation. But just being transparent about a company's policy around that, and around this role, does it pay differently depending on where you live? Is it the same pay no matter where you are? What is the pay for how to, for moving to the next level in the organization? Because people like to think, obviously, I'm gonna come in at this level, but eventually I want to grow my career. So how do you share visibility into that? Make sure you offer the right type of benefits, right? Benefits are something that is an evolving space right now. As people are more and more remote, maybe the snacks that were in the office are not really the gym in the office are not really the same value to people in this remote first world. So there's a lot of material out there, but how do you kind of build benefits packages that attract people in remote first? Flexibility. So this is kind of the key. One of the key things is, with async, is how do you provide flexibility for people? People have kids, they need child support in terms of schooling and help. How do you make sure that they can work at times that make sense to them, as long as they're doing that work that needs to get done, right? And just being upfront about what the expectations are of a company. Does a company have certain work hours that they abide by, and everyone has to be working during that time? Or is it really that, if you do your best work from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m., that's fine for the company. I think just getting aligned on between the candidate and the employer on that side. And then obviously on both sides, selfishly promote using a platform like Hired, because it sort of brings this transparency, efficiency, and equitability to hiring on both sides, and can make sure that people end up at the right job, and that companies can hire the best people for their team.
I love it. I love it. And I really have to say, I really like the pay transparency. I think that's an important component. I haven't worked in a company for a long time, but I remember back in the day when you learned that the person that got hired for the same position as you was getting paid way more than you because you were a bad negotiator. There is nothing more demoralizing than that. And people talk, it's
exactly.
not like, it's
especially
not like it's not transparent.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially more and more now. And so companies need to be able to stand behind their policies around salary bands, and it's obviously a challenge for employers, and especially for older school companies that have been doing things a certain way for a long time. It's a big shift. It's a big departure. So but we think it's really important to that equitability that everyone really says they want. So
the morale that you provide your company and the culture, just the trust that brings when you bring transparency into things, I think it gets paid back in spades in many different ways, just loyalty and all that good stuff. Okay, I've run over time, so I apologize for taking your time. I have the one last super easy question, which is, of course, if people want to learn more about Hired, they're going to go to hired.com, and I'll put that in the show notes. If they want to learn more about you and what you do, what's the best place to find you on the internet?
You could, check me out on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Slack and chatting with our team, but that's typically only internal to our team. So LinkedIn is probably the the best place to find me, and would love to kind of help companies think through some of these challenges they're having with the move to remote, and learn more about how people are doing it better than us, so that we can get better at it as ourselves.
And also, there is a global tech and sales person shortage at the moment. So
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
sounds like hire.com is the place to go then.
Exactly. Yeah. We are, we're seeing that this is an unprecedented time in terms of companies needing to hire. I think, lastly, I would say that companies now are very proactively, and I think it makes a lot of sense, we're doing the same thing, hiring for future needs, just because of this great resignation and the growth that a lot of digitally enabled companies are seeing right now in the market. Companies need to get ahead, and they know that they need the best people, no matter where they are around the world, to do that, to achieve that. So it's a great time to be in the hiring world. It's a great time to be in the talent acquisition space, and we're helping a lot of companies, and any company that's having challenges, we'd love to help them too.
And a lot of people, if you're unhappy at your job, now's the time. Like there's
Exactly.
no better time.
This is it. This is the moment to find that dream job, and to the candidates have never been in a more powerful position in terms of finding that right opportunity for them. So couldn't agree more with you on that.
Take advantage. Yeah, now's the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, love it. Josh, thank you so much for everything you provided today. I took copious notes. I had tons of questions. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
All right, everybody. Until next time, be powerful.